helped? Like, were they doing this for the first time with you or years? Okay, pause. That was being asked to Caesar. You see how they're trying to establish what was the reason that you took on Milagro Elizabeth Cooper. I thought y'all helped the people who are unprivileged so much as far as trying to overturn convictions. You see why he asked that in the beginning, right? But let's continue. Okay, so it was my understanding. This is Milagro now. It was my understanding that the foundation was built on helping people in that way. But were you aware of any examples where they had done that in other case before? Well, in another case before. She says, not in a case like mine, but yes. Ooh, excuse me. In other words, something made you think this is a good idea? Did they tell you we've been successful for some other people in this kind of circumstance? She says, no. Did you think they had any expertise in dealing with this situation? She says, I did once I spoke with them. And what did they tell you that made you think they had expertise in this? Well, at this. She says, once I spoke to the lawyers and they explained the lawsuit and he says, I don't want you to tell me your conversation with the lawyer. So I'm going to be careful because your lawyer asked me that, and that's fair. She says, okay. So I'm going to ask you some more questions about the conversations. And if you're having a lawyer-client conversation and there's no other people, including maybe Caesar, then that will be privilege or could be privilege. So it sounds like they put you in touch with an actual lawyer, right? At some point? Yes. Who was that? Walter. Ah! Do y'all not remember Walter from last night when I was reading Caesar's deposition? Y'all should know that name very well. But anyway, let's continue. He says, okay. She says, I don't know his last name at the time. And a man named Michael Hayden. The last name? Hayden. Hayden. Okay, and did Walter and Michael eventually become your lawyers? She says Michael Hayden did. He says, okay, and without telling me what was discussed, you were put in touch with Michael Hayden. And at the end of that, you said, yes, I'm going to work with these people. Yes. And the time you did that, you understood based on your contract that it was going to be pro bono, right? Yes. And at later sometime, you told me Caesar stole your money. Yes. So walk me from when you started with Michael to that. It was supposed, she said it was supposed pro bono. It was supposed pro bono. That's how it's written here on the document. Caesar told me because of Unite the People's role that I needed to pay him directly. I started a campaign on Give, Send, Go. I withdrew the money and I sent it to Caesar via Zelle in increments. I had sent maybe about $9,000. Michael A. Pansier, who was my Florida attorney, has reached out to me. And then she chimed in, Mrs. Dixon, anything that's privilege. And he says, yeah, your lawyer is concerned. So I think we can get what we need here without getting into what they said to you. So let me just get transactional. She says, okay. So at some point, Caesar, who is not a lawyer, reaches out and says, whatever it was before you, whatever it was before now, you have to pay, right? I need money for lawyers. Did a conversation about the fact that it wasn't the deal? She said, absolutely. And tell me about that conversation. In person or on the phone? She says on the phone. And what did you say? And what did he say? I told him that I felt really abandoned. And I was upset because I was supposed to be pro bono. I told him I would try as much as I could, but that was pretty much of it. He basically told me it takes money. You need to find some money. Okay. And did you have an understanding as to whether United People had other sources of money to help you? No. I had no idea about that. When they first proposed representing you pro bono, did you have an understanding of how they were going to pay the lawyers? Not at all. Did you have an understanding of who funded them generally? No. Did you know anybody who was a donor at United People? No. Other than this money through Zelle for the lawyers, did you ever make donations to Unite the People? No. Pause. I gotta pause real quick. Who was in that Instagram live when Caesar came on? Now, my memory, my memory is sharp, but I vaguely remember about donations. Maybe I could be wrong. Now, this is my opinion alone. Do y'all remember something like that? If you do, if you don't, I think I'm not too sure, too certain. This is my opinion alone. But I think there was a conversation about donations, if I'm not mistaken, because people, if I'm not mistaken, were trying to figure out a way to donate on that live. Anyway, my opinion alone. Let's continue. Do you know who the principal members are at Unite the People? No. Do you know any members of Unite the People? Caesar McDowell, Michael Hayden, Walter, and Michael Hayden and Walter, the lawyers, are members of Unite the People? I believe so. Okay, anybody else who has attached to Unite the People besides, anybody else who was attached to Unite the People besides Caesar and Michael and Walter? There have other people in their office that I've spoken to, but I don't know. I don't know their names or exactly who they are. And where is their office? I've never been to it, but I believe it's in California. All right. And tell me everything you can about what Unite the People was doing before they offered to be your lawyer. Like, what did you know? That's a big step. What did you know about them in the real world? My only point of reference with Unite the People was the association with Tory Lanez's case. All right. And what did you understand with that association? That Unite the People was in some form of fashion working on an appeal. Are we good? She says it's getting feedback. Yeah, there was an echo. Is there an echo? Is it gone? I think it's gone. Okay. And did you think Unite the People was connected in any way with Tory Lanez's camp? Can you be more specific? I was going to object as being overbroad. So yeah. Well, I'm starting broad and then I'll narrow it down. Are you aware of any connection whatsoever between Tory Lanez's team and Unite the People? No. Do you think they're unrelated? Because I thought you told me the reason you knew about them and their prior work was because they were involved with Tory Lanez's appeal. But you just asked me about a group. You said Tory Lanez's group. I'm asking you two things. Does Unite the People have anything to do with Tory Lanez? Yes, as per my understanding, they're working on an appeal for Tory Lanez. All right. So tell me everything you know about any connection between or work between Unite the People and anyone attached to Tory Lanez. The only thing I'm aware of is the Tory Lanez case and documents that were filed after the verdict. What documents were filed after the verdict? I do not know the names of the documents, but the things that were filed to help with the appeal whatsoever. Well, hold on. Let me make sure I didn't see. Okay. Whatever those different documents are that were submitted to the court. Okay. And do you know who those lawyers were? No. They weren't the same lawyers as the ones that were helping you? I don't know. Okay, so you understand that Unite the People was involved in the appeal? Yes. Tory Lanez appealed his conviction? Yes. Maybe the motion was maybe the motion for a retrial. All I know is about the appeal for sure. Okay, have you ever discussed Unite the People or their work with Tory Lanez, Dad? Yes. How many times? How many times has that come up in your conversations? Y'all give me 1 second. Let me take a sip of drink. Lord have mercy. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. All right, so let's continue. She says yes. He says, how many times? How many times has that come up in your conversations? Only a few, I would say. Okay, and when was the first time you communicated in any way with Tory Lanez's dad? In 2020. Okay, I'm going to call him Sunstar. Is that okay? That's his name, right? Yes. Is that what you call him? Yeah, Sunstar. No, you called him Daddy. We all know of you calling him Daddy. But anyway, let me continue. Okay, because there's two Mr. Petersons. What were the circumstances when you first communicated with Sunstar? Sunstar sent me a message on Instagram. You said that was in 2020? I believe so. And what did the message say? I don't recall. Generally, what it got your attention. What did you do after you got that message? I responded in some form or fashion. I don't recall what I said. What was the subject matter? My show. And in terms of the Tory Lanez case and the shooting and all of that, when was this? Was this after? This was after. Okay, and Tory Lanez, had he already been arrested? Could you be specific? Because I believe there was. I'm just trying to know what was going on when this guy reached out to you. Like, in relation to what we know was the incident, the case. At the time he reached out to me, I do not believe there had been an arrest yet or anything like that. Okay, and when he reached out to you, well, what's the first substance you can remember talking about with Sunstar? You told me you can't remember his first IG message. You can't remember your response? No, not verbatim. He was just a fan of my show. He liked my show. Okay, so he reached out like a lot of people do and said, I love what you're doing. Uh-huh. Maybe something to that effect, but I don't recall. Maybe something what? Maybe something to that effect, but I couldn't recall. Was he trying to connect with you to have further conversations? I don't recall. I believe it was simple. I like your show, maybe. Chill. All right, let's continue. Okay, if you were to start there and fast forward all the way to today, how many conversations have you had with Sunstar? I could not give you an approximate answer. Less than 5? More than 5? More like 10? That would just be difficult. I have literally no idea how often how many times I've spoken to him. I mean, we've looked at the files. It's probably hundreds, right? I don't know. Are you in a position right now to say it wasn't that many? I don't know. You can't distinguish between whether it was 5 or 10 or 100. No, because then I will be giving you a number. Child. Okay, let's go. She says no, because I will just be giving you a number. He says, well, I don't want you to be precise, but I want you to say what you would say if you were pressed on it, which is I want you to do the best you can. Is it more than 10,000? I don't know. You do know. You were on them, right? She says more than 100. Okay, more than 100 over what period of time? 3, 4 years? 5 years? 5 years? That's what she says, 5 years. Okay, and how would the two of you communicate? Phone call? Yes. Did you guys do other things, Zooms or any of these other formats? No. Okay, and how would you describe the reason you had all these conversations? Why were you talking so much? because of the role that he ultimately occupied. I'm sorry, y'all, occupied. I feel in my life as a father figure and mentor. So there she is admitting that he appeared to be a father figure in her life. Now, for some of those who were present, y'all would already have known that. But let's continue. Okay, so you said father figure and mentor. She says, Chap, what was he mentoring? Now that's a question. That's my opinion. My opinion alone. That's a question. What was he mentoring you on? Okay, let's continue. And when did you first start thinking of Sunstar as a father figure or a mentor? Like, when did it get to the point where you thought of him that way? Sunstar came. Okay, you got it. There's some tea right here. There's some tea, y'all. There's some tea right here. So we got some tea right here, y'all. Sunstar came to Houston for a visit. It was after that. Is that still probably during 2020? No. Maybe 2021. Maybe. How does it compare to where the case was? To the Tory Lanez case? Was he awaiting trial? No. This was like in 2021, maybe. So no. Okay, all right. So a Sunstar comes up to Houston and tell me about what he says, whatever interaction you had with him on that trip. I believe I did. I did a show, and then me, my husband, and my children spent the day essentially with him. So he appeared on your show? Not on that occasion, no. Okay, you did a show. Tell me what that was. Routine. I literally just did a regular show that day. And when I got done, we went and had a day out. Oh, but Sunstar wasn't on the show? No, it wasn't about him at all. I just literally, it was a word day. What you mean it was a word day? Okay, but let's continue. It just happened to be what you were doing that morning? She says, yeah. And then you did something later in the day with your family and him? Uh-huh. And what did you guys do? We chit-chatted and went to dinner. Okay, and you think this was probably in 2021? What was it in your interactions with him? Well, starting with that, when was it that you started thinking of him like a mentor or father figure? Was it something in that first dinner, or by then you were already getting there? Per our phone conversation. And I think that it was more solidified once we got to spend more time with each other with the family. Y'all, there's some tea, right? There's some tea right here. Y'all, there's some tea. So this is when she's talking about, what do you mean it became more solidified when y'all spent some time with each other with the family? Now, is she mean, okay, we're going to continue. I was finna jump the gun, but I see it right here. He says, she says, my family. Okay, so that answers my question. All right, so let's continue. And other than the Tory Lanez case, what were the areas that you guys spent time talking about? We talked about faith. We talked about different things I may be going through. Very faith-based, I would say. Very what? Faith-based, I would say. And is he a minister of some kind? I believe so. I mean, do you share the same? Are you the same religion as him? Yes. Okay, and what was in that religion? Christian, Baptist. We believe in God. Now, pause. If she believes in Christian, Baptist, this is a question that I have. Has Millie ever talked about going to church? When have we heard of her going to church? Now, that's my opinion and my question. Have y'all ever heard of her speaking about, okay, this Sunday we going to church and we finna get out of church? That's my opinion and my question, right? All right, let's continue. And so you guys bonded over that, I guess. Yeah. Yes. Okay, and all right. The how much of the hundreds of conversations over the years you have kind of mentoring in that general, how much of what you talked about was actually kind of related to the Tory Lanez situation? Where he is, how he gets out of there, that kind of stuff. It was more limited, actually. That topic was more limited. Yes. You talked about other things more than that. Absolutely. Okay. What were those other things? Faith, you said, right? Right. I have two children, so, and he chimed in and said yes. And then she continued. Sunstar has two younger children who are about the ages of my two children. So that's another talking point. That's it. Day to day things, honestly. Did you talk with him at any time in this stretch about how you were going to finance your legal defense? No. Were you still in touch with Sunstar when Caesar was saying you were going to have to come up with some money? No. I stopped communicating with him. When did you stop communicating with Sunstar? Once I was served with the lawsuit. Now pause. Now y'all put this in your notebook. Put this in your notebook now. Y'all write this down. All right, let's continue. Yes, with this lawsuit. So, like October of last year, yes. And those decision, and whose decision was it that to stop, communicating? She says, mine. You? Did you reach out and say to him, I'm not going to communicate with you anymore? No. You just stopped? Yes. Did he reach out and say, hey, you are not calling anymore? What's going on? She says, yes. And you said what? Nothing. You just didn't respond? Right? You've never communicated to him, well, you've never communicated to him a reason why you stopped being in touch? No. Even though he was a father figure, a mentor, close, religious bonding, you just cut him off? Yes. And what would you say your reasoning for that is? Because of the accusations against me per the lawsuit. Explain that to me. I was being accused of essentially colluding with him. I did not want to add to that, so I stopped communication. You thought if you continue to be in touch with him, people will continue to say you were colluding with him? Yes. To get these messages out? Yes. All right. Have you had any contact with him since then? With Sunstar? Yes. All right. Tell me that. How many times? Only maybe once or twice. And you in your mind at least, you sees the communications. Uh-huh. When you got the lawsuit because you didn't want people to say you were colluding, right? But you still had one or two interactions after that, right? More recently. And what were the circumstances? Well, first of all, how many were there? How many times have you interacted with Sunstar post the filing of this lawsuit? Probably less than 3. Okay, and when is the most recent one? I don't recall. Best you can do? A couple of months ago. I mean, there's only October to now, right? So she says probably July. Okay, maybe in July. And tell me. She says, not in July. I said it is July now. You said it was October. I'm saying the period we're talking about is between October and July, right? Right. And you had 3 interactions somewhere in there. That's your testimony, right? Right. It was in more recent months, though. In 2025, that I've had a chat with him. Okay. And can you separate out the 2 or 3 calls in your head? Were they different subject matters? No, they were all the same thing. So you made a decision you're not going to be in touch with him. Who initiates contact the first time post the filing of this lawsuit? I couldn't say. Somebody called somebody or reached out. Right. Me and Sunstar, I got the lawsuit and we spoke to Caesar like on a call together. Uh-huh. Y'all, excuse me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. He says, okay, well, all right. You just told me you didn't want to be interacting with Sunstar because you didn't want to feed those allegations of collusion. right? Right? So what made you move past that and say, oh, I'll get on the call with him and Caesar? I was, oh, I got on a call with him and Caesar because I was accused by the blogs of receiving a certain amount of money from him. And Caesar, I wanted to talk to Caesar and the lawyer about it. And I think they patched him in or something. Sunstar. Was Caesar trying to get Sunstar to contribute to your fees? No. I think that he wanted to understand the alleged payments. At this point, has Caesar already said, if you don't come up with some money, we're not going to be your lawyers? No. So you are still a pro bono client of Caesar's and Unite the People. Yeah. I would have to. I don't know the exact dates on that, but I believe I was already with Unite the People, and they were representing me pro bono. Okay. At that time, and did Caesar ask to be able to talk to Sunstar or vice versa? I don't recall. All right. What was said? What did they talk about once the three of you got together? It was something about payments. Uh-huh. Tell me what you can remember Caesar saying and Sunstar saying and you saying. Caesar said that, or I believe that I sent some screenshots of some blogs running an exclusive that I had received some money from Sunstar. And so when he got on a call, I sent a text explaining what they were about. A text to Caesar? Yeah. I sent a text to Caesar. Who so I guess you saw people out there saying you were getting money from Sunstar, yeah? Uh-huh. And then Sunstar wanted to talk to you about what was really going on. Is that right? Right. Okay, and then you wanted to put Caesar with Sunstar to get to the bottom of it? No. I believe Caesar wanted to include Sunstar or maybe get two perspectives, but I couldn't speak for him. Okay. And on that conversation, did you guys talk about whether money had exchanged hands between Sunstar and you over time? Yes. Okay. And do you remember the amounts that you were talking about? I remember the overall amount. And what was the overall amount? Okay, y'all, this is what we seen months ago, right? 3,000. Okay, and people in the blogs were saying that the money flowed from Sunstar to you, and they were saying that was to advance the message of the Tory Lanez situation. Yes, yes. And you say, I think that no, it was for something else, right? Yes. Okay, and it was, what was it again? Birthday gifts? You have to outline, and then I could speak to it better. That's what she says. You would have to outline, and then I could speak to it better. Why do you have to do that? But okay. Okay, other than birthday gifts for your kids, can you think of any reason why Sunstar will be giving you money? Yes. So I know all the reasons why he gave me money. I don't know the exact amount. Oh, just tell me the reasons. Okay, there was an occasion where he sent me birthday money. My birthday is, and for those of y'all that know, we already know what her birthday date is. But anyway, let's continue. Okay, and did he do that once or more than once? He did that once. And how does that tie into how long you had known him at that point? I couldn't say. Maybe. I couldn't say. It was years ago, not long. All right. And that was the first time he ever sent you money? I believe so. And was it Zelle or Vimo? It was Zelle. All right. And were you surprised? A lot of other people sent you cash that day. She said yes. Okay. So did you I asked you the question. Were you surprised that Sunstar sent you money on your birthday? I don't know if that's the objective. Surprised. Were you expecting it when he came? No. Well, when it came, no. Okay, after it came, did you talk to him about having sent that money? I believe I thanked him. Okay, and how much was that first birthday payment? I don't know the exact amount. It was a few hundreds though. Okay, and you said other people sent money. Were you were you fundraising for your birthday? My fans sent me money for my birthday as a gift. Okay. And she says every year. He says, okay, all right. So you had this first conversation with Caesar and Sunstar to talk about how Sunstar payments to you are being categorized, basically, right? Yes. And I think you said there was two more conversations between the filing of the lawsuit and how, other than that, one about money. And what else did you talk about? Well, did you talk to Sunstar about? I had a disagreement with the family member. Tell me everything you know about that. Who is the family member? Y'all listening to some tea right here. Some tea. Y'all listen to some tea. She says, my sister. Okay. And what was the nature of the disagreement? Girl, she talking about me, Sean, y'all. Girl, she done put me, Sean, in these court documents, girl. Ooh, that was juicy. Girl, that was juicy. Oh, okay, we finna get it. We get into some tea, y'all, some tea. All right, y'all, let's go. It's just a really tense situation because my biological father is dead and paternity has been established now, but it wasn't prior to his death. So there's just a lot of issues with paternity. Basically, it's caused a strain in our relationship. It affects how, and what was your sister's name? Do y'all see that there? Michonne. Ooh, that was juicy. Michonne. Meshawn. I'm going to object regarding relevance. I'm not, he says, I'm not going to do much on this. I just want to understand the Sunstar's angle. Did Sunstar know your sister, Michonne? No. But you, because it was kind of dramatic, you were saying this guy is a mentor and a father. And then you decided to just stop communication, right? Uh-huh. You told me when the lawsuit was filed, you made that decision. Yeah. Now, if y'all don't pay attention, just read his verbiage. Now, this is my opinion alone. Do y'all feel like he's painting a picture? Ooh, that was juicy. Do y'all feel like he's painting the picture? But yeah, I'm gonna let y'all think about that. But okay. So let's continue. You told me when the lawsuit was filed, you made that decision, yeah? Yeah. Because you didn't want the appearance of colluding. But then you were willing to have a conversation with him about the money issue. Yeah? Yes. And now you were willing to have a conversation with him about some tension with your sister. Yeah. And what did you think Sunstar could do to help with your sister? It was more for me. Like I said, our relationship was really faith-based. So I was feeling really low. And it's something that weighs on me a lot. So I really wanted encouragement. Now, pause. Now, who was on station head around that time when she went live about the whole situation and then sat up there and allowed her chat to not only cuss out Michonne, but to talk about Michonne like a dog? Who was in that station head that saw that? But now you're saying in your deposition, you felt really low and needed encouragement. So you reached out to Sunstar? That's my opinion alone, but let's continue. Okay. And how much time did you spend talking to Sunstar or communicating with him about that situation with your sister? Not too long. It wasn't a long conversation. Like one call. Yeah. That's what the subsequent calls were about. The two subsequent calls were both about your sister, about my life issues and feeling low and then navigating that. Yeah. Pause. Milagro, where's your family members at? Now, this is my opinion and my opinion alone. This is my personal experience. If I am feeling low or anything like that, don't anybody, wouldn't you have a conversation with your own family about that? I mean, you do have a husband, correct? If your spouse is not able, and this just goes to show and paints the whole picture. If I'm feeling low about something, wouldn't I go to my spouse? My spouse, it would be spousal support, right? Why would I not have that conversation with my spouse? A husband. You have a husband. Why were you not having a conversation with him? You have other family members, and I'm pretty sure you have other friends that you could have a conversation with. But you, okay, but that's my opinion alone. But let's get to it. Do you think you'll be communicating in the future with Sunstar about your sister's situation? Me and my sister are in a better place. So hopefully it will be more positive. It won't come up again. Okay. Same kind of questions for Tory Lanez. When was the first time you communicated with Tory Lanez? 2020. And what were the circumstances? His message was on Instagram. It was just like a, yo, hit me, I believe. And where was that? Was that before the shooting? After? After, okay. Before the trial? Yes. All right. And were you already out talking about the case? Yes. And when he said, yo, hit me, he said, was that on Instagram? Yes. And was that a response to something you had already posted? No. Just out of the blue? Yes. Okay. And how did you respond to that? I followed up with a phone call, or excuse me, I believe I sent my phone number. I believe I sent my phone number to him and his father. And prior to him saying, yo, hit me, you had no communication with him? No. Did you know him? No. You never met him? No. Did you know of him? Yes. Because of his celebrity of the music business. Yes. And so out of the blue, he puts on Instagram, yo, hit me, and you send him your phone number? He sent in a private message. Yes. Okay. Do you have any understanding now of why he picked you out to contact? No, because I don't think I was exclusive. I don't think I was special. Well, she said, I don't think it was special. All of the people in the world, why did he, objection, speculation? I couldn't say. Huh? I couldn't say. Well, once you followed up, did you ever ask him, why did you reach out to me? I did not ask. You didn't ask? Okay. Let's continue. You don't even know today why, of all the people in the world he could have reached out to, he picked you that day? No, I don't know. And without knowing that, you are okay just sending him your phone number? Well, yeah. Okay, what happened next in the communication history of Milagro and Tory Lanez? Did he call you? His father called me. Okay, and tell me what was said on that call. His father called me, and then Tory called at the same time. So we ended up on a three-way call, me, Tory, and Sunstar. I'm going to give a hearsay objection, but you can still answer. Okay, that's an evidentiary objection for trial. By coincidence, Tory and his dad called you at the same time? Yeah. I was on the line with Sunstar, and then moments later, Tory. All right. So you ended up on a three-way call with the both of them. Uh-huh. And tell me everything you can say about that conversation. What Tory said, what his father said, and what you said. Tory was occupied. I don't know what he was doing, but it was a lot of movement. So he didn't say much. He just said, hey. And his father made mention of the fact that what did he say? That he had watched my show and they thought it was funny that different people around them had watched it. And they realized that they all had been watching it and they kind of came together. He said, oh, you watched that too? You watched that too? That two type of thing? So it was a joke. And then a situation. And Daystar, Tory had to get off the phone. And so me and Sunstar, he prayed at that time on the phone. And then we got off the call. And then this is when Sullivan chimes in. Was Tory free at that point? Yes. Was he in jail? No, he was free. Okay. This was in 2020. That's what Milagro says. He says, all right. And so Tory was on bail. Do you remember anything that Tory said on the call? It wasn't much. Like I said, he came on and he said, hey, and shout out to you, But like I said, he was really occupied. So it was more so me and his father. And his father initiated the call. So, but Tory kind of initiated the whole thing by saying, yo, hit me up, right? Right? All right. And you can't remember anything substance that he said in the call? Right. No, honestly. But his dad, said he is in a bad situation and let's pray. No, I said that I hated the situation that they were in or that he was in. Now pause. There is someone, survive. I gotta hit you up, girl. Let me hit you up, girl. But don't we not have that audio clip where she was saying that Tory was guilty when this whole thing first came out? Did she or did she not come online saying that Tory was guilty? And did she or did she not say if he gave her some money, she would change her perspective of him? We got the audio clip. She said this on Station Head, and we got the audio clip. Okay, let's continue. And he said, yeah, God will work it out. And then he was going to pray. He said, let's pray. All right. And did you have any connection whatsoever to the underlying events of Tory's criminal case, like the shooting? You weren't there? No. All right. From your criminal justice studies, do you know what a percipient witness is? Somebody who saw whether the light is green or different than an expert witness. Do you know what that is? Okay. I'm just asking. I think I know the answer, but you are not a witness. You weren't a witness in the Tory Lanez criminal case, were you? No. And you are not saying you personally observed anything that happened there, are you? No. You don't have any personal knowledge that would be relevant to that, whether he did or did not, right? No. Now pause. Read that again. You don't have any personal knowledge that would be relevant to that, whether he did it or not. Now pause. Wasn't she the one on Station Head? We got the audio clip where she said that he called her and how she had that phone next to her and she pulled out her MacBook and she was writing word for word what he was telling her. And she said, I could have been a court reporter. She said that he was writing. I was like, yeah, Do y'all not recall that? We have the audio recording. But okay, let's continue. Okay, prior to talking to Tory and his dad after you were already familiar with the case and the underlying events, yeah? Yes. And how, let me come back to that. I want to ask you what your sort of sources of knowledge are about the case. But first, in terms of communications, where both you and Tory are on talking together, you had that first call where also dad is on. How many times through today have you later talked to Tory? Less than 10, I'd say. Okay. Less than 10 over 5 years? Yeah. Okay. And when was the most recent time? He sent me a happy birthday DM on Instagram. Well, his Instagram page did. I can't say it was him. Okay. And that was for this past birthday? Uh huh. And then we all know when her birthday is, but it's redacted. Of 2024? 2024. Yeah. Okay. And so his Instagram did something. How about an actual interaction where you were in real time either texting or talking to him? When is the most recent time? I don't recall. I don't recall. Was it in 2024? I'd have to look. I don't know. Well, the last time you actually, so you had at least, you said 10 conversations where you talked. What was what was talked about the last time you guys actually communicated in real time? The last thing I remember that is significant is when I went to Miami to interview his father. Or I'm sorry, no. Trial was after that. So I would say trial was the last significant talk we had. Okay. What was during it? What was during? He said, was that during the trial? She said, uh huh. In person on the phone. In person at the courthouse. Okay, so he is there for his trial. You were there, and you guys were talking in the courthouse. Yeah, just in the lobby or in the lobby. I spoke to him, and then on the last day of trial, he came up and said something to me. What did he say? It was a it was like a greeting type of thing. Like, hey, now pause. If y'all were present during the trial of and let me get it correct. It was the state of California versus Tory Lanez. Everybody keeps saying it's Megan Thee Stallion versus Tory Lanez. No, it wasn't. It was the state of California versus Tory Lanez. Megan Thee Stallion just so happened to have been a key witness to that case. But let's keep it a bean. Who was on station here? Because we got the recordings. I know I got the recordings. We have the recordings of her bragging, talking about she wasn't part of the media. She was going in with the family. And then she kept sitting up there talking about she was the sister to Tory Lanez. Do y'all remember that? Because we have the recordings. But anyway, let's continue. What words came out of his mouth? It wasn't a conversation. He literally walked up to me and said, hey, and he gave me a hug. It was the last day before the verdict was read. So I don't know what was behind it. Now, pause. We're going to keep going back to that ABC photo and video that was broadcasted of all of them coming out of court together. Even Caesar with that poster in his hand. And she was in that background wearing that red dress. Do y'all remember that? Okay, let's continue. So there was no communication, right? There wasn't a conversation like that. Now pause. Do y'all not recall that black Tahoe that she got into? That black and white dress. Okay, let's continue. Right. There wasn't a conversation like that. No. But he gave you a hug? Uh-huh. Okay, at that point, how many times had you guys you probably had 10 conversations by that point, by the time trial started? Yeah. Because after that, he was in jail. Yes. And you weren't able to talk to him while he was in jail? Well, like I said, I got a message from his Instagram. So That was from my birthday last year. Okay. So it sounds like the last interaction, the last day of trial, there wasn't much substance there. Well, when was the last time you had an actual back and forth where words were spoken? That's when I was saying in the Miami, and then he cut off and said, okay, and tell me when was that? As best as you can place it on the calendar. She says maybe 2023, maybe 2022, 2023. I'm not certain. For the trial? Prior to the trial, yes. Okay, see, pause. Remember, we got a video. We got a y'all got that picture. It's on Lipstick Alley. See, they got all the tea. Y'all shout out to Lipstick Alley. If y'all head on over to Lipstick Alley, they got tea when she was in that it was either a hotel or a motel. She was in the bed and they had that big old mirror above the bed and how she was taking the picture. Mm. And then if y'all don't recall, look at the original complaint and then the amended complaint. If y'all go on there and take a look, you will see where she had taken a picture with Daddy. They was at the restaurant. They was taking pictures. That's what she had posted on Instagram. That was a part of the complaint and the minute complaint. But okay, let's continue. Okay, and she says prior to the trial, he says, okay, and that's my hometown. What what did you do in Miami? She says, I went to Miami to do an interview with Sunstar. To you were going to interview somebody, or you were going to interview. I was going to interview Sunstar. Okay, on what? He wanted to speak in relation to the situation. That that Tory Lanez case, right? Or he okay. So was this going to be an episode of your show, or was it some other platform? No. This particular interview was something that I believe Tory team was going to handle because it was all done and everything was handled by them. And did this actually happen? Did you do it? Yes, I conducted the interview. Okay. And did it end up appearing on some media platform? No. No. Was there a live audience? No. Was there a live? Well, I just read that. Was the, what? Where was the interview? In Miami, in Tory's studio. There's a not a recording, not for music. It's you know, you can set up like you can decorate a room like a podcast room. It was like that. That's what I mean by studio. Now pause. Do y'all recall her going on Station Head when she was talking about Daddy? And she was talking about putting on his slippers, his luxury designer slippers. Do y'all remember that? We have the recording. Well, okay, let's continue. Okay, and was it a residence or a business place? It was a building and a commercial building. Other than that interview, do you think it was there to make music? What was what was the purpose of that place? Oh, I couldn't say. Do you know why? Why that was chosen for the interview? Did they tell you why we're doing it there? They did not tell me why. No. Okay, and did you have well, tell me about the conversations you had with Tori about the interview. I didn't have a conversation with Tori about the interview. All right. I'm still trying to get back to when you had a real substance back and forth with Tori about anything. Right. When is the last time? To be honest with you, we didn't have a conversation about substance. When I went to Miami, I was there to interview his dad. And while waiting to get to the studio and to go, I don't know the reasons why we couldn't go yet, but we had to wait. We went to Tori's home, and that is where I was there with him and others. Now, pause. Y'all remember how she talked about sharing a joint with him, and she felt like she was kissing him because they was smoking some reefers, and she talked about passing the blunt. Y'all remember that conversation on Station Head? Y'all remember that? Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let me see where I left off at. Okay, so Okay. And it was, hey, how are you doing? He told some stories, laughing, joking. So that's the latest, most significant conversation we had. And Tory has a house in Miami? I believe so. And you said you went there. Yes. Is you saw it? Yes. Do you know what neighborhood it's in? I do not. How much time did you spend there? A few hours. Okay, and you said there were others. Did you know any of the other people there? No, besides Sunstar. How many other people were there? I could not say. Less than 10. Was there anything that they had in common? Was Were they all related through Tory's case? I could not say. I do not recognize anyone there associated with the case. Was was it just purely social at the house? Yes, it was social. It was like a party. It wasn't a party. It just or hanging out. Yeah. And Tori was there. Yes. And you said what roughly like 3 hours while you were waiting around for the studio. I don't know how many hours it was. Did you get to know any of the other people there besides Sunstar and Tori? Yes. And tell me who made an impression on you from the rest of that crowd? I don't know her name, but there was a young lady who I met who seemed very nice and sweet. You don't remember her name? I don't, sorry. And did you have an understanding of why she or the other people were there that